She told the lonely Apache, "I can't close my legs." And he looked down to something unbelievable. It was a quiet morning in a small town that sat on the edge of a wide, open plain. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. Birds were beginning their songs, and the air was fresh, carrying the faint smell of grass and wildflowers. People in the town were slowly waking up, going about their usual routines. Shops were opening, children were getting ready for school, and farmers were already out in the fields tending to their animals. Among the many people in this town lived a young woman named Leela. She had grown up here and knew the streets, the shops, and the people almost like the back of her hand. But despite being surrounded by familiar faces and places, she often felt a sense of loneliness that she could not explain. Leela was kind and thoughtful, always ready to help others. She worked at the local library, a small building with wooden shelves stacked high with books. She loved her work because it allowed her to meet many people and hear their stories. Every day, she would arrange books on the shelves, help children find their favorite stories, and sometimes assist visitors who came to research local history. The library was her safe place, a world filled with stories that felt bigger and more exciting than her own quiet life. Yet, even amidst the laughter of children and the chatter of visitors, Leela felt a quiet emptiness inside her. On this particular morning, Leela had arrived earlier than usual. She liked the peace of the early hours when the library was still empty, and the only sound was the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. She walked slowly among the shelves, touching the spines of the books as she passed, feeling the textures of the pages and imagining the worlds within. She paused in front of a shelf filled with books about history, thinking about the people who had lived long ago and the adventures they had gone through. Leela loved imagining the lives of others because it made her own life feel a little less lonely. As she continued to arrange the books, she heard the faint sound of footsteps coming from the entrance. Looking up, she saw a man she had never seen before. He was tall and had a calm presence that immediately caught her attention. His skin was tanned from the sun, and his eyes were dark and thoughtful. He carried a small satchel and wore a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his face. There was something about him that made Leela pause for a moment. He looked around the library as if he were searching for something important, and his gaze eventually met hers. "Good morning," he said with a quiet smile. His voice was soft but had a steady strength to it. "Good morning," Leela replied, smiling back. She noticed that he spoke carefully, as if he chose every word with thought. "Can I help you find something?" He nodded and took a step closer. "I'm looking for books about the history of this area," he said. "I want to learn more about the people who lived here long ago, especially those who were part of the Apache community." Leela felt a sudden spark of interest. The Apache had been an important part of the region's history, and many of their stories had been preserved in books and oral traditions. "I can help you with that," she said, guiding him toward a section of the library dedicated to local history. "We have several books that tell the stories of the Apache people, their culture, and their experiences over the years." As they walked together, Leela noticed that he listened carefully to every word she said. He asked questions with genuine curiosity, and his eyes lit up whenever she mentioned a particularly interesting story or fact. Leela felt a sense of excitement she had not felt in a long time. Here was someone who seemed to truly appreciate the history and the stories she loved so much. They spent hours going through books, reading passages aloud, and discussing the lives of the Apache people. He told her about his own interest in history and how he had spent years traveling to different places, learning about the traditions and struggles of various communities. Leela was fascinated by his stories, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a strong connection with someone. During their conversation, he shared that he had come to this town to find something very personal. He was researching his family history and believed that some of his ancestors had lived in this area. He spoke about his grandparents and the stories they had told him as a child. Leela listened attentively, realizing that he was not just looking for information in books, but also seeking a connection to his roots. The hours passed quickly, and soon the sun had risen high in the sky. The library, once quiet, was now filled with the gentle hum of visitors and the soft rustle of pages being turned. Leela and the man, whose name was Aaron, had formed a comfortable rhythm. They shared laughs, exchanged thoughtful comments, and even debated over some historical details. It was easy and natural, and Leela felt a warmth in her heart that she had not experienced before. At one point, they came across an old photograph tucked inside a book. It showed a group of Apache men, women, and children standing in front of a small wooden building. Aaron's eyes widened as he studied the photo. This might be part of my family," he said softly. "I can't believe I found this here." Leela leaned closer, looking at the photograph with him. She could see the emotion in his eyes and understood that this moment was very important to him. "It's amazing how history can connect us to the past," she said. "Sometimes we find pieces of ourselves in places we never expected." Aaron nodded, his gaze still fixed on the photograph. "I feel like I've been searching for this my whole life," he admitted. "And now, seeing it here, it feels like something I didn't know I needed has finally found me." Leela felt a gentle pull in her chest, a mixture of empathy and curiosity. She wanted to understand more about his journey, and she felt honored to be part of this moment. "I'm glad you found it," she said sincerely. "Sometimes the smallest discoveries can mean the most." As the day went on, they continued exploring the library together. They shared stories from their own lives, laughed at small misunderstandings, and marveled at the way the past seemed to come alive through the books. Leela felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. Being with Aaron, even for a short time, reminded her of the importance of human connection and the joy of sharing knowledge and experiences. Before leaving, Aaron turned to Leela and said, "Thank you for today. You've helped me more than you know. I came here looking for history, but I found something even more valuable, someone who understands and cares." Leela smiled, feeling her heart lift. "I'm glad you came," she replied softly. "Sometimes the people we meet can change our lives in ways we don't expect." As he left the library, Leela watched him disappear down the street, feeling a mixture of happiness and longing. She realized that life had a way of bringing people together at unexpected moments, and even a quiet town could hold surprises that changed the course of one's day, or even one's life. That night, Leela sat by her window, looking at the stars twinkling in the sky. She thought about Aaron, the stories they had shared, and the photograph that had connected him to his past. She felt a sense of hope and anticipation, wondering what the future might hold. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one filled with unexpected encounters, shared stories, and meaningful connections. Even though she was used to being alone, Leela no longer felt completely lonely. She had realized that sometimes, all it took was one person, one conversation, or one discovery to bring warmth into a quiet life. And as she closed her eyes that night, she felt a quiet joy, knowing that tomorrow might bring another surprising and wonderful encounter, just like today had. The next morning, Leela woke up with a sense of quiet excitement. The memory of the previous day lingered in her mind, like a gentle echo of something unexpected yet wonderful. She thought about Aaron, the stranger who had walked into her life and shared stories with such honesty and curiosity. Though their meeting had lasted only a few hours, it had left a lasting impression on her heart. There was something different about him, something that made the world feel bigger, brighter, and more full of possibilities. She got ready slowly, savoring the calm of the morning. The sun streamed through her window, casting a warm glow over her small room. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the table, thinking about the library and the photograph they had found together. Leela wondered whether Aaron would come back. She didn't know why she cared so much, but she felt a pull, a hope that he might return and continue the connection they had started. By mid-morning, she made her way to the library. The streets were quiet, with only a few people walking by, carrying groceries or heading to work. Leela felt a sense of anticipation as she approached the familiar building. The wooden doors creaked softly as she opened them, and the familiar smell of books and polished wood welcomed her. She walked slowly to the front desk, arranging her notes and preparing for the day ahead. Even though the library was quiet, Leela felt a spark of energy in the air, a sense that something important was about to happen. As she was sorting some new arrivals on the shelves, she heard the soft sound of the door opening. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked up and saw Aaron standing there again, his satchel over his shoulder and the same thoughtful expression on his face. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he smiled warmly. "Good morning," he said. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Leela shook her head, smiling back. "Not at all. I'm glad to see you again." There was a natural ease in their interaction, as if yesterday had built a bridge between them that made conversation simple and comfortable. Aaron stepped closer, looking around the library with a sense of purpose. "I've been thinking a lot about the photograph we found," he said. "I want to understand more about the people in it, their lives, their struggles, their achievements, everything. And I realized that I can't do it alone. I'd like your help if you don't mind." Leela felt a warm feeling in her chest. She had always loved history, and the thought of exploring it with someone as passionate as Aaron was exciting. "Of course," she said. "I'd be happy to help. There's so much to learn, and I think it will be amazing to discover it together." They spent the morning going through the books, taking careful notes and reading passages aloud to one another. Aaron had a natural curiosity that was contagious. He asked questions that Leela hadn't considered, and his enthusiasm made her feel more confident in her own knowledge. They laughed over small mistakes in the texts, shared favorite quotes, and even debated over different interpretations of certain events. The library, once a quiet sanctuary, now felt alive with energy and shared purpose. As the hours passed, their conversation shifted from history to their personal lives. Aaron told her about his childhood, about the stories his grandparents had shared, and the sense of identity he had always sought through family history. Leela listened, captivated by his words. She shared some of her own experiences, the quiet life she had lived, and the small joys and disappointments that shaped her days. There was a comfort in sharing these stories, a feeling of trust growing between them. At one point, Aaron pulled out a small notebook from his satchel. It was filled with sketches, notes, and observations he had made during his travels. Leela peered over his shoulder, fascinated by the careful detail in his writing. "You're very thorough," she said, admiring the pages. Aaron smiled a little shyly. "I want to remember everything, not just the facts, but the feelings, the atmosphere, the little details that make a story alive." Leela felt a deep admiration for him. It wasn't just his knowledge or curiosity that impressed her. It was his sincerity, his dedication to understanding the past and connecting it to the present. She realized that this connection between them was more than just shared interests. It was a meeting of minds and hearts. By afternoon, they decided to take a break and stepped outside into the bright sunlight. The town was lively now, with people walking along the streets, children playing, and the sound of birds in the trees. Aaron suggested a short walk to a nearby park where an old monument commemorated the local Apache community. Leela agreed, happy to continue their conversation in the open air. As they walked, they talked about their dreams and aspirations. Aaron spoke of his desire to preserve the stories of his ancestors, to ensure that future generations could understand their heritage. Leela shared her hopes of helping others through her work at the library, of making history and stories accessible to everyone, not just through books but through personal connections. When they reached the park, they stood by the monument, reading the inscriptions and examining the carvings. Aaron took out his camera and photographed the monument from different angles, careful to capture the light and shadows. Leela watched him, fascinated by the care he took in documenting even the smallest details. "This place is important," Aaron said quietly. "It reminds us that the past is never really gone. It's part of who we are, and it shapes the choices we make today." Leela nodded. She felt the truth of his words deep within her. "It's easy to forget that sometimes," she said. "But when you see these reminders, it makes everything feel more connected. History isn't just in books, it's all around us." They sat on a nearby bench, continuing their conversation. The afternoon passed quickly, and the sun began to dip toward the horizon. Shadows stretched across the park, and the sky turned shades of pink and gold. Leela felt a sense of peace she had rarely experienced. Being with Aaron, talking and learning together, made her feel alive in a way that her quiet life had not. As they prepared to leave the park, Aaron turned to her and said, "Thank you for spending the day with me. I've learned so much, not just about history, but about the importance of sharing it with someone who cares." Leela smiled warmly. "I feel the same. You've reminded me how exciting it can be to discover something new, especially when you're not alone." On their way back to the library, they talked about future plans. Aaron mentioned that he wanted to visit nearby towns and archives to continue his research. Leela offered to help him organize his findings and suggested they create a small collection of photographs and notes that could be shared with the community. The idea excited both of them, and they began discussing practical steps, such as which places to visit, what records to search for, and how to document their discoveries. Back at the library, they spent the last hour of daylight arranging books and making notes. Leela noticed how naturally their teamwork had developed. They complemented each other perfectly. Her knowledge of the library and local history, combined with his passion and careful attention to detail, created a powerful partnership. As the day ended, Aaron packed his satchel and prepared to leave. "I'll see you tomorrow," he asked, hope in his voice. Leela nodded, a smile on her face. "Definitely, we have so much more to explore." He paused for a moment, then added, "I'm glad I met you, Leela. You've made this journey meaningful." Her heart warmed at his words. "And you've made it exciting," she replied. As Aaron walked away, Leela stood by the library door, watching him disappear down the street. She felt a sense of anticipation and curiosity about the days ahead. She realized that life could change in unexpected ways, that one person could bring new energy, excitement, and hope into her quiet world. That night, Leela reflected on the day. She thought about their conversations, their shared discoveries, and the way Aaron had made her feel alive and connected. She felt a sense of gratitude and excitement, knowing that their journey together was only beginning. The past had brought them together, but it was their shared experiences and curiosity that would shape the future. Even as she lay in bed, she felt the spark of inspiration. Tomorrow would be another day filled with discoveries, laughter, and meaningful connection. And she understood more than ever that some of the most important moments in life come unexpectedly, through encounters that open doors to new worlds and new possibilities. For Leela, yesterday had been a surprise. Today had been an awakening. And tomorrow promised even more, a chance to continue exploring, learning, and growing, not just with books and history, but with someone who had become a companion, a friend, and perhaps something even more significant in her life. The next morning, Leela woke up feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. She had been thinking about the day ahead since waking. Yesterday had been extraordinary, and she couldn't help but wonder what new experiences awaited her. She felt a growing excitement about the research she and Aaron were doing, but there was also something more, a subtle, warm feeling in her chest that she couldn't quite explain. Leela brushed her hair back and took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay focused. Today, they were planning to visit a small archive in a neighboring town that held records about families who had lived in the area generations ago. By the time she arrived at the library, Aaron was already there, waiting by the front desk. He waved as she entered, and she noticed a small stack of notebooks and maps in his hands. "Good morning, Leela," he said, his smile lighting up his face. "I hope you're ready. Today could be very important for our project." Leela returned the smile, feeling her own excitement rising. "I've been looking forward to this all night," she admitted. "Let's see what we can discover." They began their journey on foot, walking through the streets of the town and talking about their goals for the day. The archive was a small building with faded wooden doors and a sign that had clearly weathered many years of sun and rain. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old paper, dust, and polished wood. Leela felt a thrill of curiosity. She had always loved places like this, where history seemed to wait quietly on every shelf and in every drawer. Aaron greeted the archivist, a kind elderly man named Mr. Henderson, who had worked there for decades. He welcomed them warmly and offered guidance on the materials they could examine. Leela and Aaron carefully went through old census records, letters, and photographs. Every piece of paper seemed to hold a story, and they took their time reading, discussing, and making notes. Aaron was meticulous, cross-referencing information from one record with another, while Leela helped him navigate the archives and interpret details from the past. Hours passed quickly. They discovered the names of several families connected to Aaron's ancestors, along with details of their lives, their struggles, celebrations, and everyday routines. Leela felt a deep admiration for Aaron's dedication. He was not only interested in facts, but in understanding the emotions and experiences of the people who had lived long ago. It inspired her to think more deeply about the stories she shared with others at the library. At one point, they found a small, worn letter tucked inside an old ledger. It had faded ink and careful handwriting. Aaron carefully unfolded it, his hands steady but gentle. Leela leaned closer to read it with him. The letter spoke of hope and resilience, written by a woman to her family during a difficult time. Aaron's eyes glistened as he read it aloud. "This woman's words, they're incredible," he said softly. "It's amazing to think that her voice has survived all these years." Leela nodded, feeling moved. "It's like a message across time," she said. "Even though we don't know her personally, her courage and thoughts reach us now. That's the power of history." They continued exploring the archives, occasionally sharing stories from their own lives that connected to the materials they were studying. Leela felt a growing sense of trust and comfort with Aaron. His presence was calming, yet it energized her curiosity. There was a balance between them that felt rare and precious. Around midday, they took a break in a small courtyard outside the archive. The sun shone warmly, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers from nearby gardens. They sat on a bench, sipping water and reflecting on what they had found so far. Aaron spread out some of the photographs and documents they had gathered. "It's incredible how much we've uncovered in just a short time," he said. "I feel like we're slowly piecing together a puzzle that's been waiting for us for generations." Leela smiled, feeling proud of their progress. "And we're doing it together," she said. "That makes it even more meaningful." After the break, they returned to the archives and continued their work. They discovered a photograph of a family standing outside a small house. Aaron's breath caught as he looked closely. "I think this might be my great-grandparents," he said quietly. He studied the photo carefully, noting the expressions, clothing, and surroundings. Leela felt a thrill of excitement herself. They were uncovering real pieces of the past, connecting the present to history in ways neither of them had expected. As they worked, Aaron began to speak about his childhood memories of his grandparents. He described the stories they had shared, the traditions they had passed down, and the lessons he had learned from them. Leela listened attentively, appreciating the depth of his connection to his past. She realized that history was not just about dates and events, it was about people, their lives, and the impact they left behind. The afternoon passed, and the light outside began to change. Shadows grew longer, and the warm glow of the sun created a golden hue over the courtyard. They had gathered a significant amount of material, enough to spend days organizing and analyzing. Aaron suggested that they head back to the library to sort through their findings and begin creating a structured collection. Leela agreed, excited to see how all the pieces fit together. Back at the library, they laid out their notes, photographs, and documents across a large table. They organized everything by family, date, and location. Leela was amazed at how much they had accomplished in just a few days. Aaron's dedication and methodical approach, combined with her knowledge and understanding of the community, created a remarkable synergy. As they worked, they began to share more personal thoughts and reflections. Leela spoke about her feelings of loneliness before meeting Aaron, how she had always loved history but often felt isolated in her interests. Aaron listened carefully, offering support and understanding. He shared similar feelings from his own life, the sense of searching for something meaningful and the joy of discovering connections he hadn't known existed. They paused for a moment, looking at the organized materials spread before them. "It's amazing to see it all come together," Aaron said. "Every name, every photo, every letter, it's like we're giving these people a voice again." Leela felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "And we're preserving it for the future," she said. "Other people will be able to learn from these stories just like we have." As evening approached, they packed away the materials and prepared to leave. Aaron paused at the door, looking thoughtful. "Leela," he said softly, "I want you to know how much I appreciate your help. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've made this journey unforgettable." Leela felt a warmth spread through her chest. "And you've reminded me why I love what I do," she replied. "You've made history feel alive, and you've made me feel part of something bigger than myself." Aaron smiled a little shyly and nodded. "I'm glad. I hope we can continue this journey together for as long as it takes." Walking home that evening, Leela reflected on the day. She thought about the discoveries they had made, the stories they had uncovered, and the bond that had grown between them. It was more than just a partnership in research. It was a connection that brought comfort, excitement, and a sense of shared purpose. That night, Leela sat by her window, looking at the stars. She felt a quiet sense of wonder, thinking about how life could surprise her in unexpected ways. She had met someone who shared her passion, someone who made her feel seen and understood. The past had brought them together, but it was their shared curiosity and empathy that were building something lasting. In the days that followed, Leela and Aaron continued their work with renewed energy. They visited more archives, spoke with local families, and explored old homes and landmarks connected to Aaron's ancestors. Each discovery brought new insights, new stories, and new opportunities to learn. Leela felt herself growing in confidence, both in her knowledge and in her ability to connect with others. Through their journey, she realized that history was not just a collection of facts. It was a living story, shaped by people, emotions, and experiences. And by working together, they were breathing life into the past, creating a bridge between generations and giving meaning to the stories that had been waiting to be told. By the end of Part 3, Leela had learned something important. Meaningful connections could be found in unexpected places, and even quiet lives could be filled with excitement, discovery, and deep friendship. She looked forward to the next day, knowing that there were still many stories to uncover, many lessons to learn, and many moments to share. And for the first time in a long while, Leela felt truly at peace, knowing that she was part of something larger than herself, a journey of discovery, connection, and understanding that had only just begun. The following morning, Leela woke up with a sense of quiet anticipation. Over the past few days, her life had changed in ways she could not have imagined. Meeting Aaron, exploring history together, and uncovering stories of the past had brought a new energy and purpose into her life. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for their shared journey, and today, she knew, would be another day filled with surprises and discoveries. She arrived at the library a little earlier than usual. The sun was rising, casting soft light across the streets and reflecting off the windows of the buildings. Leela enjoyed this quiet time before the town fully woke, feeling as if she were part of a world that existed just for her. She organized the library shelves, checking the materials they had gathered over the past days, making notes of the discoveries that still needed attention. The room smelled of books, ink, and polished wood, a comforting combination that reminded her of why she loved this place so much. As she was arranging some historical documents, she heard the familiar sound of the library door opening. She looked up and saw Aaron standing there carrying a small folder filled with papers and photographs. His expression was calm but excited, a combination that made her smile instantly. "Good morning, Leela," he said, his voice warm. "I hope you're ready. Today might be one of the most important days of our research so far." "I'm ready," she replied, her heart lifting. "What do you have planned?" Aaron set his folder on the table and opened it carefully. "I managed to get access to a private collection in another town," he explained. "It contains letters, diaries, and photographs from families that were connected to my ancestors. Some of the documents have never been made public before. I thought we could go through them together." Leela felt a thrill of excitement. She had always loved the idea of uncovering hidden stories, and now she had the chance to explore something truly unique. "That sounds amazing," she said. "Let's see what we can discover." They packed a small bag with the documents, notes, and other materials they would need, then set out on their journey. The streets were quiet in the morning light, and the air was crisp and fresh. They walked side by side, talking quietly about what they might find and sharing their thoughts about the people they had already learned about. Leela felt a sense of closeness with Aaron, a comfort that made the hours of walking feel light and pleasant. Upon arriving at the private collection, they were greeted by the curator, a kind and elderly woman named Mrs. Carver. She welcomed them warmly and guided them into a small room filled with carefully organized shelves. Each shelf held delicate papers, bound journals, and photographs from generations past. The air smelled faintly of old ink and leather, and the room seemed almost magical, as if it had been preserved just for people like Leela and Aaron. Aaron and Leela began their work immediately, carefully examining each document and making notes. They discovered letters from mothers to children, diaries detailing daily life, and photographs of families standing proudly in front of their homes. With each discovery, Aaron's excitement grew, and Leela felt a sense of joy in witnessing his reactions. There was something deeply moving about seeing history through his eyes, about understanding how these stories connected to his family and to the larger community. One photograph in particular caught their attention. It showed a group of people standing on a hill, the sun casting long shadows behind them. Aaron studied the image closely, noticing details in the clothing, the expressions, and the landscape. "I think this might be part of my family," he said softly, awe in his voice. This could be the very moment one of my ancestors was remembered by others in the community. Leela leaned closer, examining the photograph with him. It's incredible, she said. Even after so many years, their presence still feels strong. You can almost imagine the stories they would tell if they were here. They continued working for hours, uncovering letters that spoke of courage, hope, and resilience. One letter described a difficult winter, how a family had struggled to survive, but had managed to support each other through love and determination. Another diary entry detailed the daily life of a young girl who had grown up learning lessons that shaped her adulthood. Leela and Aaron read these documents carefully, discussing the emotions and experiences behind the words. Each discovery felt like a small window into the past, a connection that brought the stories to life. As the afternoon sun filtered through the windows, Aaron turned to Leela. I'm grateful for your help, he said sincerely. I couldn't have done this without you. You have a way of seeing the meaning behind these stories that I sometimes miss. You make the past feel alive. Leela felt a warm glow in her chest. And you've reminded me why I love history, she said. It's not just about facts and dates. It's about people, their experiences, and the connections we can make to our own lives. Working with you has made that clearer than ever. They paused for a moment, reflecting on all they had discovered. The room was quiet except for the soft rustle of pages and the occasional click of a camera as Aaron documented the materials. Leela realized how much she had grown in these past days, not just in her knowledge of history, but in her ability to connect with others, to share stories, and to feel a sense of purpose. As they prepared to leave the collection, Aaron suggested one last stop. There's a small memorial nearby dedicated to families like mine, he explained. I thought we could visit it, reflect on what we've found, and consider how we can preserve these stories for the future. Leela agreed, eager to see the memorial and to spend more time sharing this meaningful experience with Aaron. When they arrived, they saw a carefully maintained garden with a stone monument engraved with the names of many families from the region. Flowers were planted around the base, and the air was calm and peaceful. Leela felt a sense of reverence as she looked at the names, realizing that each one represented a life, a story, and a legacy. Aaron knelt by the monument, placing a small photograph he had carried with him. These people lived, loved, and worked hard to leave a mark, he said softly. Now we can make sure their stories continue to be remembered. Leela stood beside him, feeling the weight and beauty of the moment. And we can share these stories with others, she said. People will be able to learn, feel, and connect with the past because of what we've discovered. They spent some time at the memorial, reflecting on the lives and experiences they had uncovered. Leela felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey they had taken together had brought history to life, connected generations, and allowed them to feel a shared sense of purpose. She realized that even a quiet life could hold extraordinary experiences, especially when shared with someone who understood and cared. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Aaron turned to Leela. Thank you for being part of this journey, he said. You've made it more than just research, you've made it meaningful and memorable. Leela smiled, feeling her heart swell with gratitude. And you've reminded me that life is full of surprises, she said. You've shown me that connections, discovery, and learning can change everything. They walked back to the library together, carrying the documents and photographs they had gathered. The streets were quiet now, and the air was cool with the evening breeze. Leela felt a sense of peace, knowing that the work they had done would leave a lasting impact. The stories they had uncovered would continue to inspire, educate, and connect people long after they were gone. Back at the library, they carefully organized their findings, making sure everything was preserved and accessible. Aaron thanked Leela once again, and they discussed how they could continue sharing the stories they had found with the community. They talked about small exhibitions, storytelling sessions, and ways to involve children and adults alike in understanding the past. Leela felt proud of their accomplishments and excited about the future. As the day ended, Aaron packed his things and prepared to leave. He looked at Leela with a sincere expression. I hope we can continue this work together, he said. Not just for the history, but because of the connection we've built. It's rare to find someone who understands and shares your passion so fully. Leela felt a warmth spread through her chest. I hope so too, she replied. This has been one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. Aaron smiled, giving her a small nod before heading out into the evening. Leela watched him leave, feeling a sense of gratitude, excitement, and hope. She realized that their journey was far from over. There were still stories to uncover, lessons to learn, and connections to be made. But she also knew that whatever happened next, she had already gained something invaluable. The experience of sharing her passion, discovering new stories, and forming a deep, meaningful friendship. That night, Leela sat by her window, looking up at the stars. She reflected on the past few days, the discoveries, the emotions, the shared moments, and the bond that had grown between her and Aaron. She understood that life was full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises could lead to experiences that changed the course of one's life. As she closed her eyes, Leela felt a quiet sense of joy. She knew that the journey they had taken together would continue, and that the stories they had uncovered would live on, inspiring others and connecting generations. And she understood more than ever that even the smallest actions, listening, sharing, and caring, could have a profound impact. With a peaceful heart and a hopeful mind, Leela drifted off to sleep, ready for whatever adventures the future might bring. The past had guided them to each other, the present had filled them with purpose and connection, and the future promised even more discoveries, friendships, and meaningful moments. Life, she realized, was a story waiting to be told, and she was grateful to be part of it.